Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show here on PowerTube TV. It's great to be back for another episode. As always, this show is brought to you by TrackTune, and you'll be hearing and seeing more from TrackTune through the course of the show. This show is a bit different. We've got a young man with us who actually is trying to make his way up the open wheel ranks of motorsports. And he's had some very unique experience that we'll talk about as we go here. His name is Hunter Yeany. And Hunter has spent some time, he is 19 years old. He spent some time racing FIAF3. We'll get to that in a moment. But Hunter, I want to start with you where we left off this year, which is you were running the USF Pro 2000 series in 2024. Talk a little bit, first of all, about why you chose that series. Talk about who you raced with, raced for, and then, talk about your experience in that series.
Yeah, so this year, I started out my season with TJ Speed Motorsports and USF Pro. I did some practicing with them early this year, and then we got into the racing season, really just kind of got down to business. So, yeah.
Talk a bit about your season overall. You ran St. Petersburg, you ran NOLA, you ran the Indy Grand Prix. I definitely want to talk about what that was like to race the Brickyard, right? But let's start with your debut at St. Petersburg.
All right. Yeah, so I would say St. Pete. I always love going to St. Pete. It's my second time I've ever been there since it's my second year racing in USF Pro. But I really liked it. The atmosphere around it. It's the first race. It's kind of really just kind of where do you end up in the field? Where do you sort yourself out? Because nobody really knows where we're all at until you actually have that first qualifying and you find out what your speed's like, what your team speed's like. So I would say practice was pretty good at St. Petersburg. Ran pretty smoothly, just kind of got used to the track, built up some momentum. Qualifying, I made a mistake on my best lap, so that kind of put us down the order, P15. But I think we got the biggest mover in that race, and I made the Hoya back up to P7.
Wow, that's a lot of cars to pass for sure. And then you finished 13th in race 2 at St.
Yeah, race 2. I got into an incident with one of the other drivers because I was going for a move that I had made 3 times previously the day before in the race before. Okay. It just didn't end up working that time. But, I mean, you miss all the shots you don't take, right?
Well, that's for sure. So you said this was your second year racing in USF Pro. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that this is a series that basically has 8 race teams, but there's 22 drivers. So all of you basically are in sort of multi-driver tents, right? And I mean, it's a very competitive series with a lot of aggressive young racers. To start out at St. Pete with the 7th and the 13th this year, not bad at all. But talk a little bit about the series as a whole, what those cars are like to drive.
So the USF Pro car is definitely kind of all the USF cars in that series. They're all very light cars. They feel very nimble to drive. Personally, it's one of my favorite cars I've ever driven because it's just so easy to throw into a corner and it's just going to stick because some cars are a little bit heavier than others. You have the Formula Regional car. That one's kind of harder to throw into a corner because it's a little bit heavier. So you have a little bit more, I guess a little bit more snaps and stuff coming from those type of cars. But
okay.
I just love the way it handles the USF car.
Well, you must, because you went from St. Pete to NOLA and you had a first, a second, and a third, just because you wanted to cover all the podium spots, I imagine, on the weekend. So you made a huge leap from St. Pete to NOLA. What is it about NOLA that you did so well? Is it the track? Was it just the car was better? I mean, talk about, that's a huge jump.
Yeah, so it's actually really funny you say that because the test I did at NOLA, the last time I drove at NOLA before I did the race there, I just got over kind of healing from a big crash I had in testing. Ooh. And I was like, what is it about this track? I was like, I just can't click with it. That was in testing, and then we came back to go to the race, and then I think I got pole for one of the races or maybe two of the races, and then I got first, second, and third, just like you said. So I was like, man, I was like, this track isn't so bad after all. Like, I think it's just the flow of the track. I had a really good car from the start of the weekend. Like we really kind of just, I think, hit it on the head, like as a team, like as a whole.
Okay.
And I think the key was just making the car ride the bumps nice. Like the car rode the bumps nice. I knew I could put it into a corner at a high speed because there's some really high speed corners at NOLA, and I knew the car wouldn't like freak out over bumps or like step out on me. So I think it's just all about confidence in the car there.
Okay, and then you went to Indy, coming off of a huge weekend at NOLA. You go to Indy for the Grand Prix. Of course, road course is what you're running, and
Yeah.
a fourth, and 11th, and a fifth. Not a bad weekend at Indy. I'm sure you would have liked to have been first, second, and third again. But
Oh
what's
yeah,
it like
of
to
course.
even race at the Brickyard?
I think it's really just kind of like it's just such a cool feeling because you show up to Indy and it's like a way bigger track than you ever imagined. Like the track is like ginormous. Like it takes you probably like 40 minutes to walk from one side to the other. At least that's what I thought when I was watching IndyCar. Um, but just driving on the track like itself, it's so cool coming down the straightaway, seeing like the giant grandstands, um, watching. I just think the tower is really cool. For whatever reason, I really like the tower and like that you can see all the numbers on it. Like that's
Sure.
always been a thing about the Brickyard. I've liked how wide the track is, and just knowing that you're driving on like one of the most like iconic American tracks that there is out there. You know, like I think there's only, I would say Daytona is probably one of the only ones that probably rivals it.
And you got to race there. And again, that's a nice weekend. Now, for those watching this, we're going to do a little bit of jumping about in time here, but I'm kind of doing it for a purpose. We go back a couple of years to 2022. Now, you had run USF4, and
Yes.
then in 2022, you go over to run FIA F3. Now, this isn't GB3. This isn't Great Britain. This is FIA F3. And that is a huge step from basically Formula Regional, Formula Americas to FIA F3, both in competition, but also just in the way that the drivers and the teams and everybody sort of view this racing. It's huge over there. So
Yes.
I want to know, after coming off of a 2021 season where you kind of mixed your series a little bit, Formula Regional Americas, Indy Pro a little bit, a race or two in British F3, and then straight to FIA. What was behind the decision? I know your goal was Formula One and probably still is, but at what point did you decide, or why at that point did you decide to go straight to FIA F3 after only a little bit of British F3 racing?
Um, hmm. I would say that like I probably wanted to get the jump. I wanted to get the jump on like other people my age in Formula 3. Like maybe if I could just get that first year when I was 16 in FIF3, and then everybody
Okay.
else comes in that's my age the next year, then I'll have that 1 year of experience on them. But one thing I didn't really think about was that all of those other drivers over there already have been racing on those tracks their entire life. So I was
Yeah.
kind of just like I was stepping in, I was a little bit on the back foot already, even though I was already kind of going in thinking I was going to be on the top foot.
Right. Yep. And that, I'm sure that was that had to be difficult for you, just even
Oh yeah,
mentally, right?
100%.
Because you're used to running up front, and it is just, that's brutally competitive over there.
It is.
And without going through, all of your finishes, you had some encouraging runs, but then about halfway through that rookie season, you had a wrist injury, right?
Yeah, I did.
So you were out for a good piece of that year. What was that like for you to sort of mentally navigate, having to sort of stop just as you were starting to get on a roll and sit out for a while with a wrist injury?
Um, I mean, nobody likes to have any injuries like that. You're kind of just like getting into the rhythm of the season, like getting going, really learning about the car, and then you get your wrist injury. And like the whole point of that year was to get on the tracks, get familiar with the car, get familiar with like the racing series and how it works over there. And then you get a wrist injury, and then basically the one thing you're trying to go after comes to an end. So
Yeah.
it was just really unfortunate. I think it was also kind of a good time I could use to like reset and just like rethink like what is my main goal going into, like whenever I come back, what is going to be my main goal, and like what am I going to focus on the most.
And so you had some time off that year. You did come back at Monza. And I mean, again, for the audience, you're racing places like Bahrain and Imola and Barcelona and Silverstone and Red Bull Ring. And then you got your injury, I guess, at Red Bull Ring, right? And sat out Hungering, Spa, and then Zandvoort before you came back for the season closer at Monza. And again, mid-pack is about where you were running. But that's like running for wins here, right?
I guess like I feel like it just kind of, I think the overall racing is just different. Like the way that like FIAF3 runs and the level of competition there versus level of competition here. It's just like once again, like Europeans, they've been racing on those tracks for their whole life, like since they've started.
Since karts.
Same with American drivers here. American drivers here have been, and South Americans, like they've been racing on these tracks since they were born. So like, I think that it's just all overall like just kind of an experience on the tracks thing, like how much experience you have and like how much little things you know about the track can make a big difference.
So you swapped between 22 and 23. You swapped from Campos to Carlin Racing to go running for, again, FIAF3 competition in 2023. Did that help? Tell us about the differences, what that was like. Talk about your season last year.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say the differences from Campos to Carlin. I liked working with both teams. One of the main differences was just the language difference, like the language barrier. Like the one thing I liked a lot more about Carlin is that they all spoke, most of them spoke English.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, most of them spoke English. So you could kind of just like, no one was talking in a different accent or a different language. And you were kind of like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Wondering what they were saying, if they were saying something about you or not. Most of the time at Campos, they did talk in English because I was there and I can't speak Spanish, but
sure.
Yeah. So I would say that was the main difference. Other than that, it's a really similar kind of, it's really similar how both teams work. They're both always very hardworking. And they kind of have their own ways of going out about things. The other thing that's different is the simulator, how Carlin runs their simulator sessions versus how Campos runs theirs. Like when I was at Campos, I would do different sequences, like warm-up sequences and run sequences on their sim than I would at Carlin. So yeah, not too much different, but like little things that make the difference,
For sure. Okay, so you had a couple of years over there basically, and then of course you came back here and went back to the road to Indy ladder in about a minute. Why that decision?
I think first off, we saw the opportunity to get 10 super license points here. That was one of the reasons we liked it, but it was also a good opportunity to kind of like show myself back in America and get in front of some good IndyCar teams. You know what I mean? Like kind of try and like show what I can do back at home.
Okay. And now we're going to step aside here. But when we come back, I want to pick up on that little comment about the super license points, because I don't think probably a lot of people realize that, those points are extremely valuable. And when you're racing in Europe, accumulating those points is what really kind of moves you along toward F1. It's really kind of an interesting dynamic. So we're going to step aside. When we come back, more with Hunter Yeany, and we're going to talk about super license and why it makes such a big difference toward Formula One. Back with more of the show after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. Hunter Yeany is our guest. This segment of the show being brought to you by Ultimate QM. If you would like to get your son or daughter into motorsports, quarter midget racing might just be a great way to do it. You can race locally, you can race regionally, and you can race nationally. There's even a NASCAR league for quarter midgets. It's called the Youth Series, and it runs at several NASCAR facilities all through the year when NASCAR is also in town. So it's a great opportunity for all of the family, really, to go and be a part of that. Ultimate QM, based here in Mooresville, North Carolina. It is family owned. Andy Loden builds the cars. His son, Nick, has won about 180 quarter midget races and is now successfully racing a late model. And Ultimate QM, one-stop shop. You can buy the car from them. They will help you with setups. They will help you with driver coaching. They even have at-track services at many of the bigger races. Winners win across the country every week with Ultimate QM. Visit them at ultimateqm.com. Hunter Yeany, we are talking about his career, which in the last couple of years has bounced between the Road to Indy ladder and then also FIAF3. Hunter's ultimate goal is to compete in the F1 series. And we talked a little bit at the end of the last segment, Hunter, about super license points. The super license is the key to being eligible to compete in F1. And I believe you have to have 40 super license points. You mentioned that by coming back and running in the Road to Indy ladder, you can pick up 10 super license points. Can you tell us a little bit about how important those points are? Because it feels like accumulating those points is almost more important than how many races you win in any of the feeder series.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that looking for points it's like more of a long-term thing. Like you go to these different series, you race some, but you only get the points from winning the series or where you place in the series.
Okay.
So we saw it as a great opportunity to come back to America, race in USF Pro, because there was 10 super license points eligible. But it was also just a really good opportunity to get in front of these IndyCar teams, Indy Next teams, and hopefully just kind of like prove to them that you're like worth being on their team and worth driving their cars.
So has your goal changed basically I mean, obviously I'm sure you would still love to be in F1, but at this point, are you now thinking that maybe IndyCar would be just fine if that's where the career took you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I would be fine with either. Like I'd be fine with running an IndyCar. I'd be fine with running an F1 car. F1 was obviously, I mean, I think it's been the main goal since day one, but I've also just loved IndyCar. I love like the vibe around IndyCar. And yeah, I would have no problem running an IndyCar.
Now, when you were in FIAF3, who were you racing against that maybe has moved up a notch or two that people might know about or should keep their eye on in terms of being an F1 prospect? Because again, it's so deep with real competition over there. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think for one, Gabriel Bortoletto, I think he's a pretty good driver. Yep. He's an F2 now. I think he's a McLaren junior driver, but I think he's done a pretty good job. Paul Laren, I raced him in F3. Okay. I don't know if he's still leading the F2 championship, but I know he was doing a really good job.
He's up there if he's not leading it. Yep.
Yeah, and then this one's not really from F3, but this is from Formula Regional. Okay. I used to race against David Malukas for I think one or two races, so that was pretty cool. Oh, and
Well,
Linus Lundqvist. Yeah.
okay. So again, those last two now in IndyCar, and David Malukas just signed a multi-year deal with AJ Foyt Racing. And I couldn't be happier about that because I'm really hoping to see him teamed with Santino Ferrucci and maybe even keeping Stingray Robb for a 3-car team over there. But I think Malukas and Ferrucci together are an amazing team. They're both really, really good young talents. And so I'm happy that David and AJ got together because, again, that's the Americana team, basically, right?
Yeah.
AJ Foyt, Super Tex. So happy to see that. And those are some very competitive drivers, and it just gives you an idea if you're watching this show, the level at which Hunter was up against. So let's take it back for a second here, all the way to the beginning. How did Hunter Yeany, what interested you in racing in the first place? You're 19 now. How old were you when you kind of got interested in the sport?
So, well, first off, I think it really starts with like my love for cars in general, just sports cars, like anything like that. Sports cars, race cars, doesn't make a difference. If it's a car, I like it. So, yeah, if it's a car and it goes fast, I like it.
There we go.
But when my racing career really started was I started doing like indoor go-karting up here in Virginia Beach. When I was like, I think, yeah, when I was about 8 or 9, that was just kind of like a Saturday ritual for me and my dad. Just go there, race together, have a good time. And then after that, I think when I was about 9 or 10, I got my first like real deal go-kart. And that's when I started going down to GoPro Motorplex. I think it's now called Trackhouse Motorplex.
Yep. Here in Mooresville.
I go down there. Yeah. I would go down there and I would race all the time, do some club races. And then the year after that, when I was 11, I started doing some more national races like WKA, USPKS, SCUSA, stuff like that. And then once I was 13, I moved up to racing cars.
Okay. So now you're you started in what kind of car? Was it you couldn't have started in USF4, right? What came before that?
Well, so the F4 car was the first car I ever drove.
Oh.
Yeah. So the F4 car was the first car I ever drove.
Okay.
I drove it at Roebling Road in Savannah, Georgia.
Yep.
A pretty cool track. I just remember the first lap I came around, I was like, going to the first corner of the chicane, I was like, oh, this car's got downforce, it can handle it. So I remember just barely braking going to the first corner, turning right, and then the car spun out. And then my engineer at the time, Dan Mitchell from VRD, he took the car back to he had the car get towed back, and he was like, all right, Yeany, you're going to clean this now. And I was like, all right. So I cleaned the car, and then he told me what I did wrong, and I went out and fixed it again. So
that's great. Well, again, learning from the mistakes. So straight from karts to F4, which is a really interesting transition, but you've always been a driver that's been very adaptable, I feel like. I mean, I've been watching you since I think your last year of F4. And then to know that you headed a little bit in 21 there, you had that mixed year, but then went to FIAF3. You went up very quickly up the levels. Looking back, do you feel like, is there any sense that maybe it was almost too quickly?
Oh, yes, 100%. I think that's probably my biggest regret that I've had so far. Like, I think we went to F4. We had a really good year, obviously winning the first year I did it. But I think that the next year I should have just focused on one championship. I think I should have just either focused on Indy Pro or Formula Regional. Because like I was saying in the first segment, the Formula Regional car is much heavier than the USF Pro car is. So I think that going back and forth between that like every weekend was kind of throwing me off. And I think I should have just stuck to either one of those.
Yeah.
And that would have helped me just kind of like focus on, okay, this is what I need to do in this car and for that year. And then I think after that, I probably should have either done like whatever championship I didn't do that year. I probably should have done that next because once again, it gets me super license points if I win it.
Yep.
And then, yeah, because instead of just going around and like jumping around 3 championships, just do one and focus on that. I think that's the main problem I had.
Now, I wonder if back then, were you really aware, though, of sort of the importance of those super license points. I mean, I feel like your mentality is what we see in the typical racer. Let's run as much as we can, as often as we can, and anything we can just to get seat time. And you're, 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
So you had like a mentality or an approach that most racers would have. Were you aware of the importance of the super license points at the time, to even be able to rationalize, well, maybe we should just do this one at a time?
I was, but I think like when I was going into F3 and stuff, I knew I think there was about like 40 points up for grabs, if you win F3.
Okay.
So I was really just kind of like, I was like, maybe I can just go in like first year and just hit it on the head. But man, I was definitely wrong.
Yeah.
Got a pretty rude awakening for that, for about 2 years. But now that I knew that, I wish I could go back and then just kind of like retrace my steps and go a little bit slower. Like I think instead of going to FIAF3 my first year in Europe, I would have liked to do GB3 or maybe like or even just take a GB3 car, like a Euro Formula car on different tracks over there and just ran laps. Like a car you could just go in, just like run laps and get good seat time. So that way the next year you go into FIAF3 and then you have enough time on these tracks, because in F3 you don't get any seat time. You only get like 30 minutes of practice, of which you get 5 push laps because you have to cool down the tires.
Oh, wow.
And then you get qualifying, which you only get like about 4 laps. And then you're expected to go out and race. And you're expected to perform and do a good job. So I think what I should have done is I probably should have just, like I said, practiced in one of these cars that can handle a lot of testing, and then come back to F3 and then just be ready, because I know the tracks and I know everything I need to know about them.
Okay. Yeah. It just seems like a very, very big jump that you made, but again, great experience. And now you have the experience, but now you come back here and you're running in the, running in the Road to Indy ladder. But you didn't finish the season.
Yeah.
So talk about why you chose to stop racing this year and not finish the season and just focus on 2025.
So the reason I stopped this year, obviously it really hurt because it's the best championship position I've been in probably since 2020.
Yeah.
So that really hurt. But I chose to stop racing this year because I knew I wasn't gonna be able to afford the rest of this year. And it really kind of made no difference just kind of go around and like scrap for money. When there's people out there who can just like lay down however much money it is for a season and get as much testing as they need to go out and just do what they need to do. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find some sponsors now that I can use for my 2025 season to partner with, and where I can get like the proper testing, the right time in a car, like the right seat time in a car, and get with the best team so I can go out there and perform and show everybody what I can do.
So
and what I know I can do.
And are you looking to be on the Road to Indy ladder again? Is that what series are you looking to race in 25?
As of right now, somewhere in the Road to Indy. As of right now, I don't exactly know where. It would either be Road to Indy or it'd be F3 again. One of the two. F3 if I could get the funding, because to do it right, me and my dad have gone through numbers, but I know it's really expensive to do F3 right. And then
you can talk about it if you want to. I mean, I think of everybody be curious what it would cost to do that right.
To do it right, probably in F3 would probably be about like $15 million. $15 million to get to. We think that it could take like $15 million to get to F1 with all testing included, tires included, gas included, running costs.
So that would be F3 and F2 then put together.
Yeah, that'd be like the ladder to F1. That's what we like speculated would be.
So if you had 50 million, you're saying that you could take yourself from F3 to be able to have a seat in F1 if one was available.
Yep, I would say so.
Okay.
And then,
wow.
Yeah, but so unless we get that, then I would probably do Road to Indy, and then just once again just kind of prove myself and just do what I know I can do out there, and then just win some races.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, I mean, Road to Indy is not cheap, but it's a whole lot less than $50 million, I
Oh,
think.
yes, it is. Yeah,
And
for sure.
man, that's just to get the mind wrapped around that kind of a number
Yeah,
that
and
you
like,
need. It's crazy.
yeah, and the other,
Hold that thought, Hunter. We're
yeah.
going to step aside. We'll pick it right up there when we come back on the Tom Baker Show.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. Hunter Yeany's our guest. Hunter is, I mean, as much a red-blooded American as you can get, born in Virginia, and Hunter is as tough as nails, mentally and physically. He is just one of those racers that you just know he not only wants it as bad as any racer ever has, but he's just got this mentality. I think it helps when your dad was a Navy SEAL. That probably in some way has helped you. We'll get to that, but I want to pick it up where we left off in the last segment. You had mentioned the fact that you thought it would take about $15 million to go back to FIAF3 and be able to have the money in the kitty, so to speak, to be able to get yourself positioned through F3 and F2 to go have an opportunity in F1. And you were gonna pick up with a thought there. I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Well, yeah. So I think that, yeah, obviously it's expensive. And IndyCar right now is my main route. But
okay,
what I was gonna say was, like, that's like the $15 million. I don't know if that includes flights or anything, but you have to remember it's like you're always taking flights overseas or
true.
somewhere really far away. Like we went to Australia one time in FIF3. And those flights are definitely not cheap. So that's kind of like another thing to add on top of all of that. Like it's not just driving, It's flights, it's like travel, rental cars, like places you're going to stay, like all of that.
So that 15 million is just to rent cars, basically, to lease, just to be in cars. That doesn't include all your expenses, right?
I'm pretty sure it's just to be in cars. I'm not sure if it includes all the other costs.
My goodness gracious. That's just incredible.
Definitely expensive.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, I know that you have the talent and I know that you have the mental toughness and the drive and all of that, Hunter, but how do you even begin to wrap yourself around trying to find $15 million to basically go racing over there versus, saying, well, maybe IndyCar will be just fine?
Honestly, it's definitely hard. We've looked for a long time. As of right now, we have Hard Rock as a sponsor. I have some other local sponsors that help me out a lot. But yeah, like kind of trying to find that type of money is definitely difficult. Trying to find whether it's an investor or a corporate sponsor, it's definitely difficult.
And see, that's how a lot of these young racers are doing it, right? They're getting investors to invest in them as opposed to, I'm not saying they're not getting any corporate sponsors, but the bulk of what you're seeing a lot of times, I think Oscar Piastri is a good example of this, and I'm sure there have been others. You have an investor that pumps in a big amount of money that's doing it, hoping that you can reach that level, because then there's an arrangement where they start recouping their investment, right? It's really a different way to think about it than what we typically hear about, say, on the oval track side of things, where you're mostly just doing the corporate sponsor route. But it's also a whole different world to go ask an investor to invest in you versus a sponsor that's obviously going to get something back right away because they get all of the rights to the, name on the car and et cetera, all the benefits of that. So what's that been like for you so far? I'm sure you're learning a ton about business.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm learning a ton about business, just like in motorsports sides of things. Like, I think that's where Hard Rock's really come into play. They've done a lot of in-kind things for me. And like we had like a meeting in New York with a bunch of investors, and people who own corporate businesses. But, yeah, it's just kind of like talking to those people and trying to network. And I think that's what Hard Rock has really kind of helped out with us here. Trying to make and gain relationships with these people.
Yeah, that Hard Rock, that was a beautiful car that you had at Hard Rock. The paint scheme on the car in Europe was just beautiful. And that's a great relationship to have. And you mentioned in-kind. Again, not every sponsorship is totally cash. Sometimes it's a combination of cash and networking or other types of benefits. Sometimes cash and parts if it's a retail company that sells parts or whatever. So you got a lot of different types of relationships there. But how did you get Hard Rock, and what's it been like for you to work with them and just learn from them as you've built that relationship?
We met somebody that knows somebody at Hard Rock, and that's how we kind of got into talking with them. And from there, we kind of just gotten like more talks until we kind of like finally came to a deal. And like I said, now they just help us with all of our like networking and like setting up events. Like I went to the Miami Grand Prix. I went to Vegas last year. Yeah, and then I went to Miami Grand Prix last year again. So yeah, and those are all kind of places I can meet people and talk to people about my racing and what I do, and kind of get myself out there and promote myself.
And how do you kind of get received at those places? And have you met any of the Formula One drivers, and do you have kind of a relationship with any of them?
I don't have any relationships with really any of the F1 drivers other than Logan.
Logan Sargent.
Because Logan, I was on his team in FIAF3 for I think one round.
So
I got to talk to him there. That was a really cool experience. Just getting to be able to talk to him. And then I still keep in touch with him here and there, like maybe responding to one of his stories, and then he'll respond back. But other than that, I haven't really talked to any of them.
Okay. So, you've kind of arrived at a bit of a crossroads at this point, it feels like. And so you mentioned that you had a trip to New York recently on some business, trying to network with some people and talk to people. What's your day like right now? I'm sure it's mixed between probably trying to keep up with sim and, the physical training that you do. But I imagine it's a whole lot of business stuff that probably isn't the most fun thing for you, but it's a necessary part of it in 2024.
Yeah. Like about the business part of it, I think that like with racing these days, it's not all about your talent. I think it's about how you present yourself. I think it's about how you look. I think it's about mainly how much funding you can bring to the team itself. I think like the more funding that you bring to the team, the more and you can drive, then that makes you very appealing to the team. So, because overall they get business through you as well. Because you become.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I think overall you get overall the team kind of gets you as like a business asset as well to do like business with these sponsors and the people you're bringing in. So
that was the point I was going to make, is that you bring a sponsor or two to a team, but then the team also has its own network, and sometimes you can create some really interesting business to business relationships where you create more sponsorship by bringing the first sponsor. So a company like Hard Rock could also do business with a lot of other companies, right?
Yeah. Like it's like leveraging your relationships to, to like get with the team with you that you like, or whatever series you like. Okay.
Now I want to talk a little bit about, because you and your dad and your family, you have done this right, in my opinion, because you haven't just gone out looking for sponsors for a race car. You built an entire brand.
Yeah.
Hunter Yeany Collective it's very much a living, breathing thing. You've got t-shirts, you've got all kinds of stuff. Talk a little bit about how all that's developed. You've got some cool sayings. You've really done a great job of putting yourself out there and your personality, and talk a little bit about how all that's kind of come together.
So the Hunter Yeany Collective and my brand, it started back in 2021. I spent about probably like 70 hours just trying to work on like putting my brand together of what I wanted to be, and the message I wanted to give. And then on top of that, we like obviously got the cool t-shirts and stuff. Yeah, got to have the merch.
Of course.
Yeah, and then just kind of like I really wanted to show who I am and like what type of personality I have and how I kind of approach anything I do.
So how would you describe your personality? Because here's what I see. You can smile through the absolute worst adversity. Like you just have, like I said before, you're as mentally tough as any young driver I've ever seen. How would you describe your personality and what you bring to a sponsor, to an organization?
To be honest, I think like my personality is very valuable, because like I just think it's very like I think it's just like very unique. Like I'm a very fun person, like off the track and stuff. I like to like hang out with people, like talk to other drivers, like just see how their day's going and like have a good time, because we're all there just to like obviously we're there to do our work.
Right.
But that's usually only on the track and like a little bit off the track. So you should have some time to like really enjoy what you're doing. I mean, like you're driving race cars, you know, like who else is driving race cars? So yeah, I think you should just really take like the time to enjoy it and enjoy what you're doing. On top of that, I would just say like it's always been like my ambition to like race these cars, and I think that like if you have an ambition to go out, like let's say you want to be a dancer, or like let's say you want to like ride horses like my sisters, like if it's your ambition, I think you should chase it.
So your sisters are 1 horsepower racers. Are they
Yeah.
racing? They're not racers though. They're probably just like showing the horses, that kind of competition.
They do
right?
like they do like hunter jumper. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know.
That's fun. So you picked a much more expensive package of horsepower, but that's
Yeah, for sure.
just to be different, right?
Yeah, I always make the joke to them. I'm like, yeah, you guys have to deal with 1 horsepower. I have to deal with like 400.
It's pretty amazing. But again, to get back to your personality, there's an element you've had some sayings, and you really focus on never quitting. Don't quit. Keep going. How'd you develop that instinct and you put it into your brand? Talk a little bit about that. And then how has that served you with all of the sort of ups and downs that you've had in recent years in your career?
I would say that the never quitting is 100% my dad and my family and all the people I've kind of been surrounded with through my life. Most of that comes from like my dad and his friends that were all SEALs, and like it's not over until you quit, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's just a mental state. Like you wanting to quit is just like in your head. So as long as you don't quit, then you're always still going to be there. Or like the search for funding may take me, I don't know, a year, 2 years, or however long it takes. But however long it takes is however long it takes. Like I think it's just important that whenever I get my shot, I have to take it and I have to be ready for it. So I have to really just get my preparation straight.
And so what do you see as, I mean, obviously funding, but are there other obstacles that you see as kind of, being between you and obviously the ultimate goal other than just the dollars and cents? What do you think you still need to learn as a driver, et cetera?
I think there's always something you can learn. For me, it's mainly tracks, especially for like the European route. I think as myself, like you can always get better, like with feedback in cars, like coming back in, like reading the car quicker. Maybe if I could go out on track, do a couple of laps, like maybe like 1 or 2 laps, and then just instantly be like, okay, this is what needs to change in the car, and then it be right.
Okay.
Then I think like you can always improve that. Like the faster the feedback, the better, because the faster your feedback, the faster you can improve your car. and then also maybe just like traits on track as well, like learning the tracks. Actually, one of my biggest ones is probably qualifying. Like I remember like in F3, I really kind of struggled with qualifying.
Okay.
And I've definitely got much better at it now, like because of NOLA and Indianapolis. But I think that was one of the things I struggled with for the longest time was qualifying.
Yeah, that can be tough because it's a different mentality than driving a race, right? You've got to come out of the box hard and stay hard all the way through. It's really a much more aggressive mentality, and yet you don't want to go over the line either. So qualifying's tough for a lot of people. We're going to step aside. When we come back, I want to talk about another aspect of Hunter that I think is pretty cool. And we're going to talk more about what he's trying to accomplish in 2025 and maybe how to go about getting the sponsorship he wants. We'll be back in a moment.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. This is always powered by TrackTune, and happy to have Hunter Yeany on this show. And Hunter is just a super interesting young man. At 19 years old, he has driven several different types of open wheel cars and has had very good success early in his career. Went to Europe to run FIAF3 and is now back in the States, at least for the moment, and looking toward 2025. So before we get to that, I want to talk about an interesting aspect, I think, of your personality that you really show a lot of on social media. You're a water bug. Talk a little bit about, it's not just sort of, having fun in the water. There's a little bit of more of a deep attachment for you, right? Talk a little bit about why surfing and being on the water is so important to you.
Well, it's really important to me because it's just kind of like an opposite from racing, because racing is like you're always on the go. There's always something to worry about. There's always something to stress about with racing, like where you're going to finish or how fast can I learn this track, any of that. And it's kind of really just kind of like it's my space to relax and just let all that stuff go. Like if I'm out on the water surfing or whether I'm on the beach skimboarding, any of that stuff, just anything to do with the beach, I love it because it's really the place where I go to chill, relax, regroup, and just go into the next race with a clear mind.
Okay. And so when did that start? I mean, you live in Virginia. Obviously there's water there, but when did all that start? How young were you when you sort of discovered that you just loved being in the water and loved that's kind of a peaceful, happy place for you?
It kind of just happened. Like when I think definitely in 2020, like 2019, 2020, it really became my happy place because it would be like what I do when I come home from racing. Like I get home, I'd unpack my stuff, go to sleep, and then the next morning get up and then go surfing. And it really just kind of gives me a time to really like rethink about, like, let's say I just had a race weekend. It really gives me time to rethink my race weekend, what I did and what I could have done to be better. And then go into the next race or whatever I'm doing next and then hit it hard.
Okay. So, and you also spend quite a bit of time in the gym, and we've talked about your dad being a Navy SEAL a couple of different times. Now I know that Tiger Woods' father was a Navy SEAL, and he put Tiger through a form of mental training that really lasted a fair amount of time. And Tiger credits that with helping him to be almost unflappable on the golf course. Has your father ever kind of done anything like that with you, or have you had any type of similar training with, that could be compared to that?
For me, I feel like it's just like, it almost doesn't feel like it's like training. It's just a lifestyle at this point. Like I was brought up in it, and like, it's just like built into me now. It's like, you don't quit. It's like when you start something, it's like you finish it. Like you start something, you finish it. all of that. Because like I've talked to my dad before, I'm just like, man, I'm like racing is so hard, and it's like just trying to do all this stuff. It feels like there's like almost no hope sometimes. And he's like, all right, well, if you want to quit, then just quit. And then that makes sometimes I'm just like, man, why's it got to be like that? And then like then I'll just go and I'll like relax, or I'll go surfing or do something, and then I'm just like, no, I can't quit. Like there's just something in me that like I just cannot quit, because I feel like if I did quit, then it would haunt me the rest of my life, because then you become like a could have. And my biggest fear is becoming a could have. Like, oh man, if I just didn't quit racing, maybe I would have got that sponsor and I could have become a great IndyCar driver, or I could have become a great F1 driver. Like, you don't know. Once again, you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. And that's a great point. Okay, so I want to talk about cars now, because you said at the beginning of the show, anything that's cars that goes fast, you love it, right? You're a big automotive guy.
Yep.
And again, if you follow Hunter on Instagram, he shows a lot of the cars he's driven and different things, and really does a great job of showing you who he is and how cool his life can be at times. So, all right. So what is your daily driver?
Okay, so my daily driver now, pretty boring car, but it's a 2-wheel drive 4Runner. But I used to have a cooler daily driver. It was my dad's 66 Chevelle SS.
Ooh.
I was daily driving that until I got the 4Runner, but the Chevelle basically prompted me to get the 4Runner because I was just breaking my own bank on gas on gas.
Yeah.
Because that car I think only got like 8 to 10 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
So that was really hurting my pocket. But yeah, so I drove that for the longest time. It was definitely a great summer cruiser. I actually just sold it. We sold it like about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of hurt, but it's time to move on to newer things and like try and get more money for racing. So
what else
do we have to do?
What else have you got in your garage? Any muscle cars or anything that you're working on in the garage at all?
No, but I mean, I can tell you a car or two that I want to get.
Okay.
Okay. So one of my favorite cars is it's a classic car. It's a 67 through 69 Camaro.
Yes.
Those have always been one of my favorite classic cars, like because they're small, like they're not technically like lightweight, but I just think they sound cool and they look just so muscle car.
Yeah.
And then
sure.
if I was going to get a more track performance car, it would definitely have to be a C6 Corvette, Z06 or ZR1.
There you go.
Can I afford any of them? No. But will I be able to one day? Maybe. But those are definitely 2 cars on my bucket list.
That's after you climb the ladder a little bit in racing, where you're making some
Yes,
good money.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, you dump it into the car collection. I saw not too awful long ago there was a convertible that you got to drive. Talk about that.
Oh yeah, was it the Mustang?
I think maybe it was.
Okay, yeah. That's the guy he owns the gym that I work out at. His name is Alex Oliver. He owns the gym I work out at. He's got a couple of cool cars actually. He's got I forget the year of this car, but it's a Pontiac Firebird.
Okay.
It's a convertible. It's white interior, it's blue on the outside. The one I got to drive was his I think it was a Shelby GT500 convertible. Yeah, so that was really cool. He's got one of those. It's black interior, black on black. And then he has a Plymouth Cuda. I think it's a 1970 Plymouth Cuda, 1970.
Another one of my favorite cars.
Yeah, that one's red and red with black interior. But that's like another car. It's like it just like screams muscle car. It looks like a dragster. It should be on the drag strip, or at a red light, getting ready to drag race.
For sure. Now that was where I was going to go next with you. Have you ever done any drag racing? I mean, obviously not professionally, but just, local test and tune stuff. You ever done that?
I haven't. I've never done anything like on like a drag strip or anything like that.
Okay.
I've never drag raced on the streets either, thank God.
But please don't.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I've never done anything like that. The only other type of racing I've ever done was I did a dirt oval in a Legends car. Like I think it was in 2021. I did. Yeah. And that was some of the most fun racing I've ever done, if I'm being honest.
Wow. Okay. I did not know this. So you actually got the
Yeah,
Legends car. And again, for those who don't know, Legends cars run on asphalt and dirt and road courses, actually. And there are national championships and world championships, and it's a spec car. And the horsepower to weight ratio is extremely high. So it's very fast, very darty. They're not easy cars to get a hold of. And you drove one
definitely
on
not.
dirt for the first time. What was that like?
So it's definitely an interesting car. Like it's much different than the Formula cars. Like it's it's still a race car. It's not as high performance as like an F4 car is, or like
Sure.
a USF car or an F3, but it's like it's just like different, like the way you need to drive it. Because if you use the brakes at all in that car, it's like the brakes fade so quick. It's like you really got to kind of like time when you're going to use the brakes, or like same with the tires. Like you can burn up tires in them so fast. I did one test day on asphalt, or one or two test days on an asphalt track, and man, like the tires and the brakes just get overheated so
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
But dirt was really fun. I really like dirt. Like I actually really enjoy that a lot.
So how many did you just do one?
I did too, and uh, I forgot to mention his name. One of the people I actually did it with was Nikita Johnson,
Okay,
so that was
sure.
pretty
Yeah,
fun.
you
Yeah,
one of your teammates from VRD, and
yeah.
boy, Nikita's having a heck of a racing season right now.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, he's my main competition from the beginning of the year. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I definitely wish him all well. I wish him well because I've raced with him since the beginning of my career in cars. So, and
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, nice kid. Got to know him a little bit when he raced here in the Charlotte area in the summer shootout with the Legends cars. So that was cool that you got to do that dirt deal. Would that be something that you would ever have an interest in doing? Like maybe a late model or a modified
Oh,
on dirt, something like that.
I would be interested in doing like honestly any racing. Like I'm just interested in all of it. Like I wouldn't want to stop with F1 or IndyCar. Like after IndyCar or F1, I'd want to try out NASCAR, or I'd want to try out like maybe like do some like dirt racing or something like that. Like I mean, why not just try them all, you know?
Yeah, I think when you get to the top levels like IndyCar or F1, they sort of discourage you from going off and moonlighting. But Kyle Larson gets away with it, does a really good job.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the best to ever sit in a car, in my opinion. But that's interesting, and I didn't know that about you either. That you're just willing to basically run anything. So if an opportunity came up in one of those series, or I was even thinking about IMSA, is there anything in that interests you at all? It's just to consider opportunities that may come your way with your experience base.
Yeah, 100%. I almost got the opportunity in 2020 after my race season in F4 to run the Daytona 24 in an
Oh,
LMP3 car.
Rolex.
That would have been awesome. Unfortunately, it didn't end up happening, but that was definitely something on my bucket list and definitely still is. And because I want to run the Daytona 500 someday, I want to run like 24 hours of Le Mans or 24 hours of Daytona. Either one of them, like just knock them all off the list, you know?
Wow, that's interesting. So when you think about where you're at now, you could pivot in almost any direction if the opportunity were right.
Yeah. Preferably, I'd want to stay on like the open wheel route just because it's what I've been doing for the last like year, like plenty of years. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I want to stick with because it's what I know and it's what I do best.
Okay, so tell me how people can find you and follow you on socials, website, all of that.
My Instagram is just at Hunter Yeany. No uppercase, nothing, just my name. I'm pretty sure it's the same on Facebook, and you can look up my website or my brand website at hunteryeany.com.
HunterYeany.com. Yeany is how that is spelled. And it's also on screen for you there. Hunter, I wish we had more time. We'll have to have you back on a future show. Wish you all the best as you make plans for 2025. And thanks for taking some time to come on and talk to us about your career.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's Hunter Yeany, one of the top prospects going on the open wheel side of things, but I think that kid can drive anything with four wheels and a motor. And with that, we are going to close the show for this week. For more exclusive content and stories, you can join us at steeringwheelnation.com. And of course, check out our 24/7 streaming page on watchpower2tv.com. Visit tracktune.live to check out how you can sign your track or series up so that your fans can hear all of the action, all of the call over the PA on their phone or device. It's the app that we all need. We just didn't know it. Tracktune.live. Check out ultimateqm.com for all the info on how to get your young ones started in quarter midget racing. Remember, winners win with Ultimate QM. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter/X at The Wheel Nation, Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn, and of course, Tom Baker Media. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, feel free to connect. And that's going to wrap things up. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Friday.